China is criticising the US government for inviting Taiwan to upcoming international talks. More than 100 countries, including Australia, will attend the Summit for Democracy on December 9th and 10th. China claims the self-governing island is part of its own territory, which Taiwan rejects. Beijing says it is firmly opposed to the invitation. The United States' actions are a tool to advance its geopolitical objectives and divide the world. Both China and Russia were not invited to the event. For more, let's bring in Professor Gordon Flake, the Chief Executive of the Perth USAsia Centre at the University of Western Australia. Gordon, good to see you. We saw Penny Wong and Peter Dutton here in Australia have been exchanging barbs over our country's position and the messaging surrounding Taiwan this week. Has the government statements on Taiwan been amping up tensions in the region, as Labor is suggesting?
Oh, look, I understand that words matter and the nuances do matter, but in the broad picture, for 40 years now, Australia has had a remarkably nonpartisan approach to Taiwan. And if you look at the fundamentals, that continues. I think largely what we're seeing is differences in the diplomatic approach versus the security approach. It's not surprising that someone with a foreign ministerial portfolio is going to be more focused on the nuancing of the wording. Just to give you one specific example, there's been a lot of, I think, incorrect, unhelpful, and inaccurate commentary, including from former ambassadors like the former ambassador Jeff Raby, suggesting that Australia recognizes that Taiwan is part of China. In fact, if you look at our 1972 joint communique, we use very precise wording. We acknowledge the People's Republic of China position that Taiwan is a province of China. And so those nuances matter. On the defense side of the spectrum, on the security side of the spectrum, ambiguity is not your friend. And so you want to avoid the risk of miscalculation. And so I wouldn't go too much down that partisan rabbit hole. That words matter, but we have different positions. And mercifully, this has largely been and continues to largely be a nonpartisan issue in Australia.
Meantime, Gordon, President Xi delivered a speech on Tuesday saying he supports ASEAN's efforts to build a nuclear weapon-free zone. How much of that speech was targeted at the AUKUS agreement?
It was, but to be honest, quite clumsily slow. So, he indicated very strongly that he thought that no country should bully smaller countries on the same day that China is leveraging the same type of economic coercion against Lithuania that it already has against Australia and the Philippines and Vietnam and South Korea and Taiwan. There already is a nuclear-free zone. AUKUS doesn't affect that whatsoever. We're talking about nuclear propulsion, not nuclear weapons, in terms of that process. This was an attempt to suggest that the region was opposed to AUKUS, when at the same time, Japan and India have been vocally very supportive of it. Vietnam, the Singapore, the Philippines, and even Indonesia have been more or less supportive. And so I'm not so sure that President Xi's effort to make this as divisive as he'd like it to be was successful.